The breaking news on the terror threat on an incoming flight to the United States. As you heard, the reporting coming from Al-Qaeda, people banned from laptops, iPads, carrying them on board the plane in the actual cabin itself. What can you tell us about this?
Well, Aaron, we've not been briefed, but as the reports are indicating, the Department of Homeland Security is looking at this issue. We do all know from other news reports, not just about this, that there has been some concern for some time about electronic items being used to hide explosive devices and their threats to airline traffic. Yeah. So this is along the lines of things that we've heard concerns about before. And it certainly, if it occurs, shows that the Department of Homeland Security is tracing down these leads.
A ban, of course, though, is a big move. And Al-Qaeda's chief bomb maker is based in Yemen, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. He's attempted bombing on passenger planes, including the Christmas Day underwear bomber to Detroit. Hearing that a security concern from Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is causing a ban on virtually all electronics coming onto flights in a dozen airlines coming to New York, Detroit, Chicago, that feels very real, Congressman, and very scary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you look at, how, those who seek to do us harm have progressed, everything from the shoe bomber forward, this is all about getting the intelligence we need, applying it to, the type of protections and interventions that we can do, and then trying to lessen that threat. And this certainly sounds like it could be part of that.
All right. I want to get to the other breaking news about the hearing. We all saw you there today. You were there when the FBI director confirmed for the first time that there's an investigation into possible links between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and whether there was any actual coordination between the two. When you heard that, what did you think?
Well, there's a couple things. I mean, first off, we'd already had hours of classified briefings from these two gentlemen and from the FBI director himself. This hearing was the effort from the chairman to bring forward this discussion, this debate, in a public forum, in a public fashion, so that people would understand what we're dealing with in the Intelligence Committee on this important issue of possible collusion with the Trump campaign, and the issue, which is even more important, of how do we assess the Russians' attempts to affect the outcome of our elections, and how do we intervene in the future to protect the electoral process.
So you support that investigation going all the way to its conclusion, that they should be looking into any possible links, or coordination was the word the FBI director used?
Well, I don't think anyone would say that the FBI should not look at these issues, but I think it is important to put in perspective that the FBI director said that we should not read into either way the fact that this investigation has been ongoing. It's been ongoing since June. One shocking thing of this is that's an admission from the FBI director that as we came to the end of the campaign, he had both the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaigns and their nominees, Republican and Democrat nominee, under investigations with the FBI. That certainly is shocking when you look at that context.
Well, it's embarrassing perhaps for the country, but when people say when there's smoke, there's fire, one of our panelists just said it, and others have been saying it today. Do you agree with that?
It's interesting listening both to the people who are commenting on this, and of course in the hearing people are pointing out evidence or things that they think are dispositive of this. If you look at, Clapper, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, coming forward and saying before he left in January, that's, him having served from July through January during the investigation, that he saw no evidence. The chairman of the Intelligence Committee openly saying at the end of the hearing, we've seen no evidence, and we're asking the FBI and the intelligence community to come forward. I think it certainly is highly speculative, and people shouldn't be jumping to conclusions. So this is an important issue, and it does need to be addressed, but it certainly shouldn't be played out in the media.
Okay, one thing that was very clearly addressed today, and in that aspect, when it came to coordination, he said we're still investigating. He didn't say that when it came to wiretapping. All right, he couldn't have been more definitive, as we've been reporting. There is no evidence. It did not happen that President Obama wiretapped President Trump. Do you think that President Trump should apologize, that he should retract the accusations that he made, which frankly were personal? They were alleging that President Obama had done something criminal. Should he apologize?
Well, one thing that we know is the president needs to explain. I mean, no one understands why he made that statement. We do know that there are a number of claims of interceptions of Trump communications or Trump campaign communications, all of which were leaks that were made to the press. You heard the FBI director say today that a lot of the stories in the Washington Post and New York Times were not true, although he wouldn't tell us which ones were. He has told us, but we can't tell because he's telling us in a classified session. So I think the president needs to explain, and I think that we need to pursue this issue of leaks, because this is all based upon the fact...
communications, Congressman, that does go back to the ambassador, Sergei Kislyak, right, who was being monitored as many foreign diplomats are, and certainly ones from Russia, right? That was how that was picked up. You're right. The fact that it happened was leaked. But it's not as if they're talking about all kinds of other communications, right? That's been specifically what it's been about.
No, actually, the Washington Post and the New York Times have ran articles claiming other communications having been captured, which, again, you have the FBI director saying, I can't tell you which one of these are true and which one are not, but if you look at the news reports, they're claiming a number of communications were captured, all of which I think go to the issue that crimes have have occurred. People have broken laws for these leaks, and we need to stop the leaks also.
Okay, separate from the leaks, though, just to be very clear, when it comes to President Trump, you're saying he needs to explain, not apologize, to Barack Obama?
Well, I mean, at this point, I think the ball's in his court. We've had the FBI director say, that there's been no evidence. The chairman of our committee, ranking member, on a bipartisan basis, came forward and said no evidence. I think on the Senate side, it had the same. I think the ball's in the president's courts to explain, what did he mean by this Trump and why is this tweet and why is he saying that?
All right. Thank you very much, Congressman. I appreciate your time.